Germany is going to struggle mightily after World War One. There's going to be a lot of changes implemented in their country, and the citizens are going to have a tough time with it, and so are a lot of the government officials for that matter. And the biggest struggle they had was redeveloping their economy. The biggest obstacle overcoming, or the biggest obstacle facing Germany was war reparations. Okay, remember after World War One, they decided that since Germany is to blame and they're on the losing side, they're going to be the ones that have to pay for the cost of the war. They calculate the total, and the dollar amounts are in the billions of dollars, and they had a long time to repay the debt. It was going to take them decades, but you see here a political cartoon that was published in the United States, implying here that these reparations are crushing Germany. You see Germany, the figure at the bottom, and how are they going to be able to collect that money if Germany's not able to do anything? And so Germany's in a bit of a quandary here, a bit of a struggle, and they start making the war reparation payments to Great Britain and France, but it doesn't take them long. Remember we talked about France. It doesn't take them long before they run into some problems. They don't have the money to take care of their citizens and repay their obligations to France and Great Britain at the same time. And so to solve their problem, they're going to do something dramatic, and they start printing more money. They start printing more paper money, and when you have a currency, it doesn't matter if it's backed by gold necessarily, or if it's not backed by gold. If you start printing more paper notes and the condition of your economy is not good, people will not value that paper currency. And what happens is France goes into a hyperinflation crisis during the early 1920s. And to give you a better understanding of what happens with that hyperinflation crisis, if you're not aware, inflation is something that's normal. Inflation is the gradual rise of prices over time. When people start making more money, they start purchasing more or spending more, and gradually over time, businesses realize that they can raise their prices because the fundamental goal of any business is to make more money. So businesses often raise their prices because they know people have the money to pay it. And so a natural rate of inflation is normal over time. Usually you don't want your inflation rate in a country to be more than 3%. So if something costs $1 this year, you really hope it doesn't cost more than $1.02 or $1.03 the next year. Now, with that in mind, that hyperinflation crisis, the printing of more and more paper money, causes a serious problem because people become aware, and so do businesses. And so they realize if there are more paper notes circulating out there in the public, then that means that they were going to have to raise their prices. And you get a runaway problem. Now, the hyperinflation crisis here is going to be what causes France to come in. And you see right here, they've loaded up railroad cars with machinery that they're going to take back to France. And the issue there is that France says, we're not going to take that paper money because we know it's not going to be worth anything. But we do know that factory equipment or coal, that's going to be worth something to us. Now, the hyperinflation crisis becomes so dramatic that the amount of cash, what you see here, are children playing with large stacks of money because it becomes so worthless. To give you a better understanding, a loaf of bread right at the end of the war cost 1 German mark. The Deutschmark was essentially the German currency. 1922, just a few years after the war, that same loaf of bread goes to 163 marks. September 1923, 1.5 million marks. And then you see by November 1923, you get 200 billion marks for a loaf of bread. Now, obviously this creates a problem just with, like, people would carry around wheelbarrows of cash to go to the grocery store, and that's a real issue. But the people who get hurt the most are people, say, who have been saving money their whole life. Imagine you're a senior citizen getting ready to retire when World War I hits. And you'd save, let's say you saved 1 million marks, which is going to be a pretty substantial sum of money. 5 years later, after the war's over, what happens to the value of that 1 million marks that you spent a lifetime saving? The answer is it won't even get you a loaf of bread. And so people are going to be struggling for this. And the only way Germany felt the only thing they felt they could do was print more currency. What will eventually happen for them to solve this problem is that they simply have to hit the reset button on their currency. They declare that all the marks are going to be taken out of circulation and they're going to start a new currency. And they allowed you to trade in some of the old currency to get some of the new stuff. But this time they put a tighter rein or control on the printing of money. But it caused a lot of problems, and Germans are very upset, and understandably so. Their country doesn't seem to be acting in their best interests. Now, not only did you have economic issues for Germany after the war, you also had some political problems. One of the major political problems is Germany has changed its form of government. What happens is that part of the settlement, the Treaty of Versailles, was they had to move away from the model where the Kaiser was in charge and making most of the decisions as an autocrat. Germany, you can see here, the land is not as much as they don't have as much land as they used to, and they establish a republic, a form of a democracy, where they elect leaders to make decisions for them. And that concept is foreign to the Germans. So when they establish what's called the Weimar Republic, and they call it the Weimar Republic because that's where the new constitution establishing this government is written, in a place called Weimar. The Weimar Republic, this democracy is going to be a struggle because to have a good democracy, to have a strong democracy, you have to have citizens who are not only informed but willing to participate. Now citizens become the decision makers, and this is something to which they are not accustomed. They're accustomed to the Kaiser and his officials calling the shots, saying, here's what we're going to do, and then we do it. In that system, the Kaiser had a great deal of power, and the people don't necessarily have to be as involved. This is a huge change for them. All right? So they're undergoing a political change, and at the same time, Germany is isolated from the rest of the European and world community. They're going to be looking for some friends because a lot of nations are going to treat them as kind of an outcast.